Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters podcast in partnership with classicfootballshirts.co.uk. Get along to their site, find something you like and buy it. Whether you're a full hipster or classic collector, they have something for you. I am your host, Chris, and tonight I am joined by my usual co-host, Mr. John Welsh. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Chris.
And John, we've decided this week, because Gav is having to work again tonight, unfortunately, and Drew's having to work, it's all going Pete Tong. So we thought, right, we need to delve deep into the archives and drag someone out of their evening. So we delved very deep, and we managed to find sort of one and a half people. First of all, we've got Josh. Good evening, Josh.
I'll take it I'm the whole person and not the half one.
I'll let the listeners decide. No, of course you are the whole person, and you're going to kind of help us out a little bit with Spain and a little surprise later on. So thank you very much for jumping on with us tonight. We hopefully, depending on time, we might even be able to drag Ross on to make it an English breakfast special later on when we're talking France. So we'll see how that goes. So, without further ado then, let's rock on. And it is Josh we're going to start with, because we're going to go off to Spain first of all and have a little chat about this week's La Liga. Right then, Josh. So, as we tend to do most weeks, because we don't like to sort of we don't like to talk too much about the teams that maybe we don't watch enough of. So we thought we'll stick to the kind of the title race. It's been quite an exciting weekend, hasn't it? Deportivo Barcelona. Obviously, Barcelona, let's just not talk about that game in midweek, shall we? But fresh off of the surprise comeback, I don't know even if it is a surprise anymore against PSG, shocking comeback would be a better word. They went away to Deportivo La Coruña, needing a victory to stay close to Real Madrid and Sevilla at the top. It didn't end very well, though, for them, did it? What happened in this game? What did you make of it?
No, absolutely. Barcelona were dragged back down to earth after, I think we'll refer to it as an infamous comeback now, after PSG have handed in a report. I'm sure we'll get back to that later in the show. But yeah, this is the first time that Barcelona have lost when Luis Suarez has scored in a game, which one is an incredible stat that he's won every game that he's scored in for them. But yeah, Deportivo got a result that they really need, and full credit to them for that. They're now a little bit clearer of the relegation zone, with Granada and Sporting Gijón and Osasuna really isolated now in that bottom three, 6 points from safety for the best positioned Granada. And yeah, Deportivo, all credit to them. And I think PK came out after the game and said, look, we're not robots. They've really just, this, I think they were just so drained from the game midweek that it was they hit reality pretty hard. And I think the ground that they've lost in the title race as well won't help them at all.
No, as you say, back down to earth with a bump. You do get this a lot, don't you, when teams have a massive victory in Europe and then it's a bit of a come down in midweek. And the same could be said, kind of the reverse, really, with Sevilla, because they had what on paper looked like a very winnable game away to Leganés. But it didn't, at home, I should say, getting all my fixtures mixed up, at home to Leganés. Now, you'd have expected them to prepare for this Leicester game that they've got at time of recording imminently, funnily enough. But they only managed a 1-1 draw. Gabriel scoring for Leganés and Stefan Jovetic with the equaliser. Do you personally think they're in this title race, Josh? Do you think they've got what it takes to run the length, as it were?
I think they've certainly got enough to push Barcelona for second place. I think tonight's result of whether or not they're still continuing in their Champions League adventure will dictate whether or not they'll have enough legs to push them harder than they actually will, potentially. But with results like this, with a 1-1 draw against Leganés and last week a 1-1 draw with Alaves, who have recently promoted. It's not looking good at the moment. They seem to be missing something, whether or not that's a little bit of lack of creativity or just not sharp in front of goal. I'm not sure, but this is not good reading for them. But we'll see, I think, later this evening what they can do, and potentially they were just kind of on cruise control, autopilot for the last couple of weeks, just making sure they're all ready and firing for the Champions League with a 2-1 aggregate score that they've currently got, advantage over Leicester. But we'll see this evening how they get on.
Do you think they've got what it takes to turn that tie on its head? Because obviously Sevilla have got to score. Well, I say got to score. If Sevilla score, I should say, away from home, that leaves Leicester requiring 3. Have they got what it takes to get through that tie, do you think?
I think Jorge Sampaoli teams, they're very hit and miss this season. They were conceding a bucket load of goals early on, but have shown they can tighten up. But conceding against Leganes and Alaves, it's, showing that they might not be as defensively sound as they were in earlier parts of the season. I think it's definitely going to have goals from both teams in the game. And I've got a sneaky suspicion that after following Leicester closely in the last couple of weeks, I think Craig Shakespeare might be able to get a bit of a feather in his cap for his managerial escapades with a win here and getting them through to the next round.
Does make you wonder, doesn't it? It does have a look of a game like that. Excuse me. The other team, of course, in the title race back to La Liga is Real Madrid, who remain top. We'll obviously give you the table in a second. They had a tough evening on Sunday night against Real Betis. Tony Sanabria put Betis in front. That man Ronaldo equalised, but it took until the 81st minute to get a victory, or a victorious goal, a winning goal, if you will. Sergio Ramos, he has a little bit of a habit of scoring very important goals, none more so than in recent weeks. He's just scoring for fun. I think you've dug out a stat about his prowess, and overall, did Real Madrid impress you? Because they looked a little bit leggy to me in this one.
Yeah, they did look like, and their escapades midweek had kind of held them back a little bit, but Keylor Navas's early howler didn't help, which Sanabria pounced upon and put Real Betis into an early lead. And yeah, I think they did kind of struggle to get in, but Ronaldo getting that goal really did help them. But yeah, as you say, Ramos has been absolutely vital for them, getting really important goals against. I've got to find it now. I've lost it on my screen. Last minute equaliser against Barcelona, late winner against Deportivo in December. He has got a habit of it, and it's the captain's performance that you'd expect from any captain, really, to drag his team to the title. And I think he's arguably more important at the moment than some of their forwards, because they don't seem to be doing the job that their centre back at the moment can, and he is their talisman.
Do you think it's one of these games? I mean, obviously Real Madrid were at home; they're expected to roll over Betis, and they really didn't. Is it a sign, do you think, of Zidane kind of not winging it, because that's wrong, but I wouldn't say he's getting away with it, but I don't know. I never quite know how to judge him. I mean, are you a fan of him as a manager? Do you think it's his name alone and the players just going out there and getting victories, or where do you see him as a coach? Something we asked Gav about it, and I was intrigued to get your thoughts as well.
I think there's certainly some gloss that's come off of the early hype and the Champions League victory that he got in his first season. But I think it is still very harsh to be looking down on him and saying, was he just lucky in that first season? He has shown tactical astuteness when it's come with the likes of bringing Casemiro into the team when they've needed that defensive solidity against the bigger teams around in the league and in Europe. So he has shown that he can do tactics to a point. And I think it's just a little bit of criticism because everybody's always looking out to get someone at the moment. And he is currently the target for this Real Madrid team.
Seems to be the figurehead as much as anything else, doesn't he? But nevertheless, a good result for Real Madrid. And given the fact that obviously Barcelona dropped points and Sevilla, well, Barcelona dropping all 3 and Sevilla dropping 2, that's quite a key result, I think, given the title race, particularly with Madrid with a game in hand. So we shall see how that ends up. The only other game we wanted to touch on before we go through the results, you're kind of a bit of a closet Las Palmas kind of follower. I don't know if that's the right word, but they had quite the thriller, didn't they, on Friday night with Espanyol?
They did indeed. I think this was the game that was picked out as the one to look at, and yes, it certainly lived up to expectation, with Espanyol getting a 4-3 victory over Las Palmas. I think one of the most notable things was the performance of Mauricio Lemos, who was playing in a holding midfield role for Las Palmas, but managed to come with get 2 goals in the game, equalising in both of them for the 1-1 and 2-2 scorelines. But by the point that Garcia got the final goal for Las Palmas, Espanyol already 2 goals ahead. Piatti getting a penalty, Jose Mejorado getting the final goal in that game. Jurado was really in there for the first, getting the first assist for the first goal from David Lopez, and Gerard Moreno getting one just before half time, assisted by Piatti. So all in all, I think it was a very, very good day at the office for Espanyol, but they'll look to why they've conceded so many, and I think it's been a habit of their season that they are conceding quite a few goals.
Never a dull moment in Espanyol, from what I can gather from their results as of at a time of recording. Anyway, they're certainly an entertaining side to watch. We will quickly run down the other results in this week's La Liga games. Then there was a midweek game Wednesday between Deportivo and Betis, which ended in a 1-1 draw. That Espanyol game then opened up the Friday games. On the Saturday games, Valencia stumbling again. They went behind to Sporting Gijón. Dusan shot putting Gijón in front, and Munir with a late equaliser saving Valencia's blushes. Malaga lost at home. They've, of course, now got a new coach. Marseille fans will not be huge, give a glowing reference to the certain new head coach that's picked up there. But he was, or his side, I should say, were defeated by 2-1 at home. I speak of Michel, sorry, I didn't even mention his name, did I? Alaves coming with the 2 goals away from home and got the win. Fidel with a goal and a sending off. Edgar Mendes with a 90th minute winner. Always gutting for the home side to lose that way. Atletico Madrid back to their old ways. 1-0. We remember that, don't we? Griezmann with the winner 6 minutes from time away at Granada. Sociedad surprisingly losing at home to Athletic Club Bilbao. Raul Garcia and Iñaki Williams, former Hipsters choice, of course, with a 2-0 victory there for Bilbao. Celta Vigo also rather surprisingly stumbling at home to Villarreal. Roberto Soldado back in the goals, working his way to fitness. He got the winning goal in that one. And finally on Monday, which was, of course, yesterday, Osasuna, Eibar drew 1 each. So where does that leave us in the table? We have got Real Madrid top of the table, 62 points for their 26 games played. 2 points clear of Barcelona in second on 60 points. Sevilla third on 57. Atletico Madrid 52 and fourth. So I think it's fair to say it's a 3-horse race at most at the moment. Villarreal in fifth. Sociedad sixth. Bilbao 7th, and Eibar still flying just well above their station in 8th. Espanyol and Deportivo Alaves make up the top 10. Celta Vigo down in 11th now. Las Palmas 12th. Valencia still not out of trouble yet. They're in 13th place and 30 points. Betis below them on 28. Deportivo La Coruña 27. Malaga still in trouble. 4 straight defeats for them. They're 16th on 26 points. And then you've got Leganés 25 points, and probably the 3 that are still going to go down. 19 points for Granada in 18th. 18 points for Gijón in 19th. And 11 points for Osasuna. They're having a wretched season. I think the Segunda Liga is beckoning for them. Just before we leave La Liga, John, you've managed to dig out these stats on Sergio Ramos. They are quite the stats for a central defender, aren't they?
Yes, I couldn't find the. There is a stat I know what Josh was referring to going around about. I think it's last-minute goals and winners in like cup games and things like that. But he's got 10, excuse me, 10 goals this season alone, which is absolutely ridiculous for a centre back. But 70 in his club career, and he's been around forever, and he's only 30. It's just, it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it was the guys on Football Weekly were talking about how he could have had a decent career as a striker, sort of as a target man up front. So yeah, it just but consummate captain's performance. Whenever it always seems to be in those big games where they're struggling, he's always the one to get the goal, to get them back into the game, or to win it for him.
Doesn't exclude the awful haircuts over the years. Really doesn't, but yeah, I think we can forgive him that. Forgive him that for now. But yes, interesting stats there, and he is just a machine, isn't he? Absolute machine. Okay,
I do have that stat as if
go for it.
Last minute in true Ramos fashion. That it is Sergio Ramos's last 23 goals that he has scored. 19 of them have come with Real Madrid either drawing or losing at the time. So he's really one that drags them out and really pushes them on.
He is basically a proper captain, isn't he? Like, you know, he might be a bit of a plum at times, but he is a proper captain, or leads by example, which is similar to what Ronaldo has said on a number of occasions, although I'm not quite sure he leads the same way. But that's just me. Maybe I'm a bit biased. But yeah, some staggering stats. And as I say, credit where credit's due. He has stepped up to the mark to dig Real Madrid out on a number of occasions. And long may that continue for his support base. Right. Hasn't he got a wife who's in TV as well? I think he has, hasn't he? I'm sure she's a reporter of some description.
I think so, yeah, in Spain, yeah.
Life's tough, isn't it? Life's tough. Right, okay, we will leave Spain there then for this week. As usual, ping your questions across. We will do our best to come up with some sort of answers for you. Can't guarantee they're going to be right. Can't guarantee they're not going to be short, but we will do our best regardless. Right, we're going to move on to Italy next and see what's going on in John's neck of the woods. And it's this week's Serie A. Okay, John, shall we start with the big one? Because I'm sure that's what everyone wants to know about. Juventus hosted Milan. Now, this is always a game that, I say it's always a game. It's not always a game that produces sort of controversy, but it is one that tends to court it, shall we say. And this one was no different. Do explain.
Yeah, what a surprise. A strange penalty decision, and Juventus are involved. We've spoken a couple of times this season already how people have complained about decisions and made accusations of Juventus getting unfair treatment compared to other clubs. But yeah, this game was sadly marred what would have been a really, really good finish by a very late penalty decision. Started off and it was all Juventus, a bit of a shuffled side with the Champions League game tonight against Porto, obviously, so they changed things a little bit. But the first goal actually came from Mehdi Benatia. He won the ball back just sort of on the halfway line and then just carried his run forwards, and nice little link-up play between Dybala and Dani Alves, who then fed Benatia, who the commentator at the time just immediately said, when Gonzalo Higuain scores, because that's who you would expect to be there, but it was actually Benatia playing as a centre-forward for a brief moment. It was all Juve pretty much the whole game. Milan did get themselves back into it. They got one good break, and it was pretty much probably one of their only real clear chances in the game. Deulofeu being released down the left-hand side, beating Barzagli for pace and laying in Carlos Bacca, who brilliant first touch and finish under Buffon. But then it was all Juventus, and it was the Gigi Donnarumma show after that, just making save after save, constantly thwarting any attempts that Juve had at scoring a goal. Higuain had a few saved. Sami Khedira he must have had 3 or 4 shots in this game, saved from all sorts of angles, and recovery saves from Donnarumma, who was putting in an amazing performance. Soso was sent off late on in injury time for Milan, but at that point it really didn't seem to matter anyway, because playing with 10 men, they were still under the cosh anyway for the entire match. Then I think the penalty was awarded in the 94th minute, something like that. Steven Lichtsteiner gets the ball and tries to fire it in from the byline into, I think it was Zapata and De Sciglio. It may have been someone else as well. But it basically, it was De Sciglio. It gets fired into his arm from a yard away, maybe even less, at full pace. His arm's not in a strange position. It's slightly out from his body. He's even trying to pull his arm in as the ball gets hit. He's running towards the byline at the time, so his arm's actually going to be swinging away from his body slightly. And a penalty was given. It was really, really dreadful decision, to be perfectly honest. It was not really clear whether it was the referee or the official behind the goal. But in the end, it was given. Dybala steps up. Donnarumma, who had saved a penalty against him in the Supercoppa out in... Oh, where did they have it? Was it Dubai? It was.
I think it was Dubai. I think it was,
Dubai, yeah. So he'd saved one against him previously. And he'd been in such great form. He dived the right way, but he just couldn't quite reach it. It was an excellent penalty from Dybala, who put it into the side netting. And that was it, final whistle, and it kind of marred what was an absolutely brilliant game. There's no doubting Juventus were the better team, but Donnarumma was so good it felt really harsh for him to be on the losing side. And then obviously because of that decision, there was some serious anger towards the officials at the end of the game. Carlos Bacca had to be restrained by Montella. Galliani, the vice president there, was also seen sort of giving some verbal abuse towards the officials. And so apparently the changing rooms were slightly defaced as well by some of the Milan players. Montella came out and said, I'm not here to talk about the official. My team played very, very well, and just kind of tried to ignore it and just move on from it, which I thought was quite good. But it's a bit disappointing. I think in Juve's defence, it's fair to say they probably could have had a penalty earlier in the game that wasn't given for a foul by Zapata on Dybala. And also, there's been plenty of games where they've got decisions not go for them, but no one ever talks about it because they win, so it doesn't really come up. But yeah, lots more of Juventus buying the league and things like that, and sort of accusations of being in cahoots with the referees and all this kind of stuff. So I'm sure it'll carry on as it always does in Italy, but an important win for Juve in a very tough game. But Donnarumma's stock just rising every time he plays. Unreal performance.
Yeah, he was absolutely quality, wasn't he? He looked absolutely shattered when that penalty went in, didn't he? He looked really, really shattered by it, and it was so unfortunate because Milan. I mean, obviously we're into followers more on them, but in a second. But yeah, I mean, it was just you felt for them, you really did, especially after what's gone on before. So yeah, unfortunate for Milan, and no points. But Juve stride on. Speaking of striding on, I think if you'd have said to either of us that Atalanta would rock up at San Siro to face Inter, and there'd be 8 goals in the game, I think we'd probably say, well, that's quite a surprise. But especially when 7 of them went to Inter, what on earth happened?
Yeah, this was. I think this was another one of the games we picked out actually, but I wasn't expecting. I didn't pick it out because I thought this would be the result. I picked it out because I thought it would be maybe a 1-1 or a 2-2, something like that. But yeah, absolutely unbelievable. Inter were unreal on the day, just absolutely on form. They were pressing high, they were winning the ball back, hunting in packs. It's the best performance I've seen them put in since the game when De Boer was still in charge against Juventus very early on in the season that they won 2-1. He had a 9-minute hat-trick from Mauro Icardi. He won the free kick at the start of the game, trying to break through on goal, which led to, I think it was Eva Banega took the free kick and it deflected in the box, and Icardi was quickest to pounce onto it. Left foot finish for the first goal. He then won the penalty, which he stepped up and took. Second goal, right foot, and then I think just 2 minutes after that, he then scores from a corner, header, perfect hat-trick. And that was 26 minutes into the match and already 3-0 up, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, because this Atalanta team, I don't think they'd lost a game since December in the league. They don't ship a lot of goals. Defensively, they're not as strong as they are going forwards. That's fair to say, but they still have very, very good players. And they are. I know they're a young team, but they've been really sound and tactically solid. But Inter were just absolutely on fire. They got 1 goal back, a decent goal from Frullier. At that point, they were already 5-0 down. And Eva Banega, also the other Argentine, got himself a hat-trick in the game. Really, really nice hat-trick. And ex-Atalanta player who they signed in January, Gagliardini, who's been so impressive since he's come in. A guy who hadn't really got a lot of Serie A experience, gone straight to that midfield and made it look really solid. Also nabbed himself a goal, and it was just absolutely perfect from Inter. Changed the system, went back to the back four instead of a back three, switching it up a little bit with rotating some players. João Mario coming back from injuries, which is why Eva Banega started. Perisic and Candreva were superb on both wings, working really hard going backwards as well as forwards. And Atalanta were completely outclassed, and I've not seen a team get ripped apart, be challenged that much this season. Because you thought it'd be a much closer affair, because Atalanta at one point were challenging for Champions League spots. So really, really impressive performance, and it begs the question of what's going to happen with Pioli come the summer. Because if there is to be a new manager at Inter with the money they want to spend, and if they want a sort of more fashionable name than Stefan Pioli, I think it's going to be very harsh on him, because he's getting a real tune out of these players. And, I don't think me or you would have said Jeffrey Kondogbia would be a star midfielder and starting midfielder in this Inter team. But him and Gagliardini are making a really good partnership, and just no one seems to be able to get past them at the moment.
True. I think the thing with Kondogbia is he's one of those players that he's always had it. He's always had ability. There's not in question, but it's always been about the attitude, the work rate, the desire to improve, the accepting of instructions. That's why I think Bakayoko at Monaco has made such great strides quicker, because he's willing to listen and is flexible and adaptable. I think, as you say, a manager like Pioli is exactly what someone like Kondogbia needs, because the athleticism he's got is there. So huge result for Inter. I do like Gagliardini. He looks a real purchase, doesn't he?
Yeah,
really
did
does.
Do the very modern no celebration against former team. Although, to be fair, he did only move in January, so it's not too surprising.
Feel a little bit harsh, yeah. No, fair play. And the other game we want to really focus on is the Derby della Lanterna, I believe it's pronounced. Genoa 0, Sampdoria 1. Good result for Samp, obviously, but had a bit more significance, didn't it?
Yeah, it's the first time Samp have done the double over Genoa since the 60s. I think it might actually be even 1960. Another goal as well for Luis Muriel, who this season is finding some real consistency. And just they've been on a decent little run at the moment, Samp, and they've always struggled because they tend to get some exciting players, and then they end up having to sell them on to sort of balance the books and that kind of thing. But what they've got there now in some of the young talent is hopefully a squad that they can actually build around and continue on with next season. And if they can keep the majority of those players there, I think they've got a real chance of pushing for Europa League. And seeing Samp back in Europe would certainly be exciting. Disappointing for Genoa, obviously. It's not going great for them. Mandolini's obviously come in to try and stabilise a little bit. He's got a few results, but there's still bigger problems there. But yeah, this Samp side is quite exciting, and I'm really looking forward to what will happen next season. I hope Gianpaolo stays there, because not so long ago he was looking like possibly being shown the door, and now there's talk of him getting a new contract. So it shows you how quickly things can obviously change in football. Apparently Muriel, whether you believe it or not, but there's quotes from him saying that he had offers from Juventus, Roma, Napoli, even rumours of Barcelona at one point, although I think that was a few years ago now, and that he apparently turned them all down because he loves Samp and he wants to stay there. But I'm not sure if that's sort of vying for a new contract or not, or improved pay, but we shall see. But yeah, Samp on a really, really good run. They haven't lost the game in the last 5, so good stuff there. And obviously their wonderful owner was in the stands with his scarf wrapped around his head in some ridiculous fashion as normal.
Yes, black. It's all black. He does look like the guy from the Fast Show, the gallery painter guy. He really does. But yeah, interesting. A good game. What didn't quite catch fire how I thought it might. I watched it. It wasn't quite. It was more of a tactical battle than incident packed, but nevertheless,
it's
atmosphere.
More for the kind of the atmosphere and everything else that goes on in the build up for it and all the fireworks and such.
Yeah. Very, very impressive for that, wasn't it? Absolutely, 100%. Okay, give us the other results then from this weekend in Italy.
Well, Monday night there was also a very decent game in terms of another team challenging to get in the Champions League. It was Lazio. Very good win, 3-1 over Torino. Immobile, the much vaunted Keita, who I fear for Lazio will be off in the summer. Another player linked with Barca came on and scored an absolutely brilliant goal. Felipe Anderson was one as well. Icardi's old friend Maxi Lopez with a goal for Torino there. No goal for Igalo on tonight's match, but yeah, a very good result for Lazio, and sort of really solidifies they've got a slim chance for Champions League. As for everyone else, Bologna got a result at last, 1-0 win against Sassuolo, away as well, so very good. Destro, do you remember him, that guy who was supposed to be going to Chelsea?
Chelsea, yeah.
He's still there. Fiorentina, Sousa still in the job, just got a injury time winner from Kalinic for Fiorentina, 1-0 over Cagliari. Not doing himself any favours though, because he took Bernardeschi off after about 60 minutes, which the Viola fans were not very happy about. Napoli got themselves back to winning ways with a 3-0 win over Crotone, Insigne with 2, and Dries Mertens as well. Chievo absolutely humped Empoli, who are in absolute freefall at the moment. 4-0, really, really nice goal from Roberto Inglese. The first one of the match is well worth checking out. Udinese on a bit of a bounce as well. They were away to Pescara, to be fair, but 3-1 win from there. If we might remember Sully Montari, still going, got a goal for Pescara, a late consolation.
He must be, was he 57 now?
He's at least, I would say, yeah. And also Roma, after what has been a really bad sort of week and a half, 2 weeks for them, they got a 3-0 win away to Palermo. El Shaarawy, Zeko and Bruno Perez with the goals there. Obviously, very interested to see what happens with their game against Lyon midweek. In terms of news, there is one little bit, which is obviously we spoke about Zamparini leaving as president of Palermo. The new president is now in place, Paul Baccanellini. He's Italian, but lives in America. He's the new president. There's some very interesting pictures of him on the internet if you want to look him up, covered in tattoos. And also, he's got himself a Palermo tattoo. I don't know if you heard this story. The Palermo Ultras went to his hotel after it was all announced that he was coming in as the new president, woke him up at 2 a.m. and said, if you really want to show how much you care about the club, because he's stated that he thinks he can keep Palermo up under his guidance. I don't know how he's going to do that as president, but there we go. We've got a tattooist in the hotel room next door, so come and get a tattoo. So 2 a.m, woken up by the Ultras, went and got a tattoo. So he now has the Palermo crest just underneath his nipple, tattooed on his body. Yeah.
As a man with 88 tattoos himself, even I wouldn't get up at 2 a.m. to have a tattoo. I've got to be honest. I think there's a line you have to draw at some point. But that is
depends how scary those Ultra fans are, though, I guess.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
He seemed quite happy to get it done anyway.
Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah, you're probably more in fear than anything else. But and it's a good job that Empoli have got teams below them, because, like you say, they are in absolute freefall.
Well, there is, I think that's what Palermo are targeting. The last game of the season, Empoli play Palermo. So there is a chance. It's a very slim chance, but, yeah, there's a chance, because Empoli just can't do anything at the moment but lose.
Trouble is, of course, Palermo actually need to win some games in the meantime to close that, 7-point gap. Yeah. So, yeah, not ideal. Okay, I'll just whip through the table, then you can give us a game to look out for next week. So Juventus are top, 70 points. They're 8 clear of Roma now in second, 62. Napoli 2 back into third on 60. 56 for Lazio, having a very good season. 4 straight wins, 56 points. Fourth, Inter, Atalanta, Milan and Fiorentina make up the top 8. Samp and Torino are the top, or 9th and 10th, so make up the top 10. Chievo 11th, Udinese 12th, 31 points for Sassuolo in 13th, same number of points for Bologna in 14th, same number of points for Cagliari in 15th. And then you've got Genoa 29 in 16th, Empoli, as we said, free fall, 22 points. So they are still 7 points clear of 15 points Palermo, 14 points Crotone, and Pescara 12 points in 20th. If just one of those bottom 3 teams could just get on a run, you just never know. I don't think I'm going to put my mortgage on it somehow, but yeah, you just never know. What game do you think we should look out for next week then?
There's sort of the lineup isn't outstanding for this weekend, but my pick is probably going to be Samp hosting Juventus 2 o'clock on a Sunday. Post Champions League night. Juventus, their one weakness has been on the road, and Samp have been on a decent run. They're very good at home, so it could be a tasty game.
Interesting. Okay, we will keep across that as always, and I think we've got a couple of Italian questions coming up in the podcast a little bit later on. So we will no doubt come back to that. There's one actually that I found that's really really good, so I think you'll probably quite like that, and you have some input on something else later on as well. So we'll come back to you on that one. Right, we are going to move on next, and we're going to go off to Germany next and see what has been going on in this week's Bundesliga. Okay, so we're going to kind of just fudge our way through this a little bit. It's my favourite expression ever, that, isn't it? I seem to say that every week. But in Drew's absence, I hope all is going well with work, Drew. We're going to just sort of pick our way through these fixtures from the last weekend. We're going to start. Let's start with Leverkusen. John, I'll come back to you quickly on Leverkusen because obviously we know Tayfun Korkut is the new Leverkusen manager, which was announced before we went off there last week. So he's the new gaffer there. Got off to a decent start against Werder Bremen on the Friday night, a 1-1 draw. Kevin Volland put them in front. Claudio Pizarro equalising 11 minutes from time. What do you sort of think, what's Leverkusen's season all about now? Is it sticking into that sort of top end of the table? I mean, they're 10th at the moment, or do you still think they've got enough to push? Because they're only, I say only, but 10 points off 5th. You know, they could go on a run. Do you think that's the goal now?
Well, they definitely want to try and get back into at least the Europa League. I think the Champions League's obviously most likely is gone for them. I can't see them closing that gap to Hoffenheim, but they really can't be out of Europe. It's a huge disaster for them. And this game it's weird because the appointment of Tayfun Korkut, it seems sensible, but it feels to me very much as you're there till the summer, and then we'll get someone else in. It was a really good free kick from Julian Brandt that actually came off the crossbar, and Kevin Volland was just quick on the follow-up with the header. The thing that will annoy him is that Leverkusen got a penalty very late on, that Toprak, absolutely awful penalty. It was 2 yards to the goalkeeper's side for Vodveld, and really easy save for him. So they had a really good opportunity to win the game there. I'm torn because they're in this weird position where they need to realistically get back into Europe, but if they do and he manages to finish there, can they really say to him, oh well, your job was only till the summer and we're getting rid of you now, when he's actually achieved exactly what they want? It puts them in an awkward position. The latest names I've seen linked, or we spoke the other week about, obviously some of the fans kind of half joking, but some of them were quite serious about possibly Ranieri. I don't think the board will be looking at that, but there's talk now of Jurgen Klinsmann as possibly coming in the summer, which would be interesting because they've got quite a young team. And obviously we talked briefly about Havertz, the 17-year-old midfielder, who's had a lot of praise. He played his first Champions League game the other week as well, and sort of trying to build the team around him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them next season, but I really do think they need to push as hard as they can to get back into at least the Europa League, because it's a huge blow to them if they're not in at least that competition.
Yeah, because they're not as heavily bankrolled, to the best of my knowledge, as some of the other big names. I mean, and even being bankrolled, we've seen where that's got Wolfsburg in recent times. So, yeah, it is. There's a bit of a tough season for them. Bayern Munich, they won. I know that's probably a big surprise to everyone. 3-0 victory over Eintracht Frankfurt. 2 more for Lewandowski and 1 for Douglas Costa. Josh, do you think Bayern Munich are in line to potentially do the double, Champions League and Bundesliga? Because obviously we all know how they did against Arsenal. They were fairly comfortable in the end. Are they slowly cranking into that gear that we'd be more familiar with them under Ancelotti?
Yeah, they were menacing in the Champions League in the knockout stages. I think this is a thing that happens with Ancelotti teams. They are quite a slow starter, a bit like a diesel engine, but once they get up to speed, they're slowly going to grind through and get the results, and they are one of the favourites for this Champions League. I think they were before the start of the season anyway, being Bayern Munich and being such a huge team. But I think with the form that we are seeing from Real Madrid, Barcelona looking shaky in that first leg and proving that they can be beaten, but they can also work miracles. I think it is between those two, Barcelona and Bayern. So we've got outside shouts from Italy and maybe France on how Monaco get on. It's tomorrow they play, isn't it, against Man City?
Yeah, time recorded, yeah.
I think, it's going to come from the trio of Bayern, Barca, or probably Juve for who lifts the Champions League. But I think the league is all but slowly wrapped up, but we'll have to see how Red Bull Leipzig can, push them right to the end.
Even 10 points adrift. I mean, I think if you'd have given RB Leipzig a Champions League space at the start of the season, they'd have bit your hand off, and it looks like that's what they're going to get. They did come...
Oh, sorry, Chris, some other news about that Bayern game. The Lewandowski, that's his 100 goals now for Bayern Munich. And also Xabi Alonso announcing his retirement from football as well. This is his last season. He's doing a Lahm, I suppose, as it's now known. Many people said Lahm could carry on playing, and Alonso certainly could as well. But he said, "I want to go out on the top. There's no point playing unless you are playing to 100%." Much like Philipp Lahm said. So yeah, he's going to be stepping away at the end of the season. So it wouldn't surprise me if, with him and Lahm both going, if this is a big push from Bayern, get the Champions League as well. And I tell you what, whoever gets Xabi Alonso as a coach and then manager is going to have one hell of a coach, because you think the people he's worked under and all the trophies he's won, he's some player.
Yeah, he really is, isn't he? Yeah, I think he's been crucial, and for a guy who I think some people thought was finished. I mean, he hasn't stepped up this season, and Bayern roll on. RB Leipzig came a cropper this weekend at home to Wolfsburg, the aforementioned Wolfsburg. Mario Gomez with a winner in the RB arena, so that's probably a bit of a surprise. I don't think many people had that on their coupons. Borussia Dortmund, sorry Drew, they came a cropper as well, away to Hertha. Classic case, Hertha Berlin haven't been consistently good for a little while, been struggling to get results. In come Dortmund, bang, 2-1 win. It's a bit of after the Lord Mayor's show for Dortmund, who of course won 4-0 against Benfica in midweek. So yes, 2-1 victory there. Kalou and Plattenhardt. Plattenhardt's free kick. Has anyone seen this?
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh my word, he didn't have spanked that, didn't he?
To be fair to Dortmund, they were guilty of not taking their chances. Hertha played quite well, but it's not a bad way to win a game, is it? That free kick, it was a bit tasty. There were some very good goals actually in Bundesliga this week.
Yeah, I'm still kind of catching up. I haven't seen them all, but that free kick, I was watching that live, and wow, he absolutely. It was a thunder bastard, as a popular journalist would say. Cracking goal, worthy of winning any game. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and I will call him Aubameyang because I just can't get my head around Aubameyang. I can't have that. So going to stick with Aubameyang. Sorry, Andy Brassel. So 2-1 victory for Hertha. Darmstadt, they're not dead and buried yet. They are, well, maybe they are dead and buried. I don't know. But it's first win in 4. But they have won 2 of the last 5. They're showing a little bit of sign of life. Aitek Sulu and Sidney Sam. I have to do it in that voice. He got a penalty. Kaiser and got one back for Mainz, but they went down. Vrancic was sent off actually for Darmstadt, as was Bell for Mainz, but they held on to a victory. Freiburg, got on the mighty Freiburg, still impressing. 1-1 draw with Nagelsmann's Hoffenheim, and
Kramaric with a lovely goal in this one. Really good goal as well. Yeah, one
of the few I have seen. That was a peach, wasn't it? And a goal for Maxi Philipp for Freiburg. Ingolstadt drew with Cologne as well. Anthony Modeste, John. I think we mentioned him a few weeks ago. We said about his goal scoring record. He's a top scorer in the Bundesliga. If he was 3 years younger, he would be up there with the most sought after strikers in Europe right now, wouldn't he?
His form is ridiculous. I think 19 goals in the league this season.
League
fantastic
goals as well.
Yeah, league goals, that is, at a team that's is doing well, Cologne, but it's not got the creative talent that a Bayern or Leipzig or Dortmund has got around him, so he's still having to do a lot of work for himself. To be fair, he's only 28, so there's possible, excuse me, like one sort of last big hurrah move if someone did go in for him. So the opportunity's there. So I don't know, maybe a Premier League club might come sniffing, because he's certainly got the build and the physique to go in the league if he wanted to do that and make a bit more money than what he's doing at Cologne. But yeah, it took him a while to warm up in the Bundesliga, but he got 15 league goals last year, and he had a few injuries as well. This year he's just been able to keep that consistency. Really impressive.
Very, very impressive indeed. And sorry, the little sound effect you might have heard in the background there was a Leicester goal. So I'm sure any Foxes fans listening will be delighted. Although, of course, we'll know what the result is by the end of the podcast. They'll either be very happy or very annoyed at that. But it's very, very. I don't know. Bundesliga this year has surprised a lot of people. I think Modeste is, for me, the biggest surprise, because I watched him at. I think he's at Blackburn, for memory, and it's at Bordeaux previously. He was an absolute shadow of this player. Just so it shows that sometimes a club or a league suits a player better. And that celebration is quality. I love it. But 2 goals for him in a 2-2 draw at Ingolstadt. Lescano and Bergeret with the second for Ingolstadt. So 2-2, and then on the Sunday we got 2 games. Schalke 3-0 victories over Augsburg, 2 more goals for Bergstaller and 1 for Caligiuri, who's a player I quite like actually. Good result that for Schalke, who are still languishing lower than they should be. And John, Gladbach watch.
Let's move on.
back to normal. Went ahead at Hamburg and ended up losing 2-1. And Bobby Wood's winning goal was a peach, to be fair.
Yeah, got to give him that.
Yeah, and
Hamburg
Hamburg
did his best in the game to try and keep it respectable. He made some very, very good saves. So
he deserved better, didn't he, on the night?
Yeah, Hamburg, to be fair, they're scrapping for everything they can to try and get themselves out of it. So it was always going to be a tough game. I think I've said a couple of times, Gladbach this season is just see how far we can get on with the Europa League, and I think our league position now is, we're safe in the league. We've got no fear of relegation, so wherever we finish is a bonus considering how poor we were earlier in the season.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? As you say, like a consolidation season and go again next year potentially. So, yeah, very, very disappointing result, but very big win for Hamburg. So that leads us nicely onto the table. Bayern Munich are top, 59 points. They are 10 clear, as we said, of Leipzig in second, 49 points, who are a further 6 clear of Dortmund in third. Then it all gets a bit close. Hoffenheim are fourth on 42 points, 40 points for Hertha in fifth. Eintracht Frankfurt, the mighty Eagles, are flapping a bit. They've had 5 straight defeats, 35 points. Cologne seventh, 34. Freiburg also eighth. Also on 34 points in eighth. Gladbach, Leverkusen, Schalke, Mainz read down to 12th. With Augsburg 13th. Wolfsburg still down there in 14th. Good win though, we should say. Andreas Jonker and Freddie Lundberg's first victory, wasn't it, for Wolfsburg? So should mention that. And Werder Bremen are sitting 15th with Hamburg. Massive win that, because it opens a gap. They've got 26 points now. Opens that gap to the bottom 2, which still look really doomed. Darmstadt 15 points bottom. Ingolstadt second bottom, 19 points. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough season for those two to clamber out. Games are running out fast. As for the relegation place, I can't call that. I mean, look at the size of the clubs that are in danger there. I mean, all the way up to Schalke are looking over their shoulders, aren't they? Schalke, Mainz, Augsburg, Wolfsburg, Werder Bremen and Hamburg, who, am I right in saying Hamburg are the longest running Bundesliga top flight team? They've got a clock, haven't they, in their ground?
They might be, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I'm sure they've got a clock in their stadium that counts the minutes that they've been in the Bundesliga for. So, hopefully, for their supporters anyway, they'll stay up. Right. Between us, shall we find a fixture for next week? What do we fancy, looking at the games?
I suppose we can find one.
Gladbach, Munich, maybe? I don't know, you might be a bit biased on Sunday.
I mean, I'd probably rather not watch it. It might be somewhat of a mauling, but I'm sure it'll be entertaining. Leverkusen Hoffenheim could be quite good. Obviously, the new manager bounce didn't quite come off, and Hoffenheim's still having a very good season. So I'd be interested in that. Although there's also Wolfsburg-Darmstadt, which is another huge game.
Massive, yeah. Especially Wolfsburg at home, they need to be winning that. And also Cologne-Hertha is a pretty decent watch, but I could be anyway. So, yeah, okay. Well, there's plenty to chew on there. We've gone for one and we picked out 4 or 5. So there you go. Watch all the games. I'm sure Drew would be delighted to hear us say that. Okay, right. So I don't think there's any other news this week, John. Is there nothing I've missed?
No, that's it, I think.
Good times. Okay, right. We will leave the Bundesliga there, and we will continue on with our final league, where we will go to France and have a chat about this week's Liga.
Sorry, Chris. I was about to do my usual. I was about to do it's Liga this week, and I normally do it, but I'm going to let Chris and our special phone-in guest.
Oh, indeed. Well, I was going to say, you can still host. I'm still going to let you host this segment, but at this stage, I'm going to invite our newest Liga and Hipster. So when I hang up my my beret and onions, cliche alert, Ross is joining us. Hello, Ross.
Hello. You will never find me in a beret, but thank you very much.
Oh, I don't know. I think you'd suit a beret. I think we need to get that.
You've
photo.
Never seen me, so I'd be fascinated to know how you know I'd fit a beret.
Well, I've seen pictures of you.
That's weird.
You know, those pictures on the internet. Everyone's seen them.
That's weird.
It is weird, isn't it? Now, before John carries us through the Liga weekend, and you can have a little say on it if you like, because I know there's one game you definitely did watch. Tell me what's got your Liga fix? Because I've dragged you kicking and screaming to follow 3 teams, haven't I? Really?
Well, half the league actually. So I did the Satchel Pod a couple of months back. I think when Southampton beat Inter Milan, and I was on with you and Lana. And Lana made me promise I'd go and watch Lyon the week after. So I did, and I really enjoyed watching Lyon. And then just generally from conversations with you about Liga, I just kind of fell into it and just started following Lille with the team that I used to get me into it, because I've had a bit of a soft spot for Lille since they won the league in 2010, 2011. And since then I've just started watching more and more games, and I've picked up 3, 4, 5 teams that I really enjoy watching. Oddly, I've dropped Lille now because they're a bit of a clown car, but Liga really does remind me of the Championship in some aspects, except it's a little bit slower, but you get a lot more technical play, which is quite refreshing.
Agreed, yes. I've made you a believer. And I'm going to let John take back over, but I think he can ask you about a game between Montpellier and Nantes, because I know you watched this and it was quite a fun watch. So I'll pass over to John.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot for me to say other than it was a bit of a bonkers game. 2-3, Montpellier scoring 2, Nantes 3. And Montpellier, who had been, they'd lost the last 2 of the last 3, but up until that point they had been on a pretty decent run. But really good result for Nantes. What did you make of the game, Ross? And in particular, I know some of the people who listen, obviously Premier League fans, a guy, Steve Mooney, who's been scoring goals for fun at Montpellier, who looks like he's going to be off to the Premier League. So what did you make of the match?
It was crazy, and there were a lot of goals in it that were either extremely scrappy or you didn't know how they'd been given. I think it was the first goal, Montpellier's first goal. It's a deep cross which looks like it's gone over the line as it crosses the top of the crossbar, and it curls back in, hits the inside of the post, and then I think Meunier is there to tap it in. It was a bizarre goal, and unfortunately there was no goal line technology because there was no dispute that it crossed the goal line, but difficult to know whether it went out of play when the ball came in. But it was a crazy game. I was watching it kind of out of the corner of my eye while I was doing something else, and then the first goal went in, and I thought, okay, well that's a bit of a crazy one. And then the second goal went in, and I thought, right, this is starting to boil. And then by half time, I was right into it. I'd stopped everything else I was doing and I was watching it. It was a damn good watch. And Nantes are one of those teams that I've really enjoyed watching, especially under the new manager, whose name I struggle to pronounce. It's Conceição, isn't it?
Yes.
He's completely turned them around, and they've been really, really enjoyable to watch, especially since the return of the winter break.
Yeah, he's been doing a very, very good job there, so much so that Leicester were reportedly after him once Ranieri was gone. But yeah, really, really good result for Nantes. 2 goals for Nakulma and the winner from Salah right at the end for Nantes. But yeah, Boudebouz and Mounet with the goals from Montpellier. Kris, our old friends Saint-Etienne keep embarrassing us this season because they keep scoring more than 1 goal. It's getting very annoying. 2-2 with Metz. Big result this. Metz, good draw for them. Is it a good result? Is it enough for what they need to do to stay away from the relegation?
Normally, it would be away from home, promoted team, playing a team that, as we say, don't ship or score too many goals, and then look what happens. But given how this ended, I think they'll feel absolutely gutted and maybe a little bit. Cheated's a strong word, but they'll certainly feel aggrieved. They went 1-0 up in the very first minute. Sarr with the goal from the assist from Oh How I Miss You, Jan Joffre, for a Lorient legend, of course. And all was going well. Robert Beric got the equaliser. He is the man who is going to carry St Etienne forwards. If anyone is going to carry St Etienne forwards, it is him. I believe that's it's only his 4th league goal of the season, which says it all, doesn't it? But he always seems to lead the line particularly well for them. So he got the equaliser, and at that stage, I think everyone thought, yeah, we'll probably go on and win the game now, St Etienne. But then the 62nd or 67th minute, Fallet scored the second goal for Metz. Very well taken, and at that stage it was looking uphill task for St Etienne. They piled on the pressure. They had numerous attacks, plenty of corners, but they couldn't force the equaliser until the referee put up, or his 4th official put up his board. Indicated 5 minutes, and I think from memory, I'd have to go back and check this. I believe it was like the 5th minute and 30 something seconds. So obviously well beyond the 5 minutes played. In comes a long free kick, and it was headed home. Jordan Veretout, who Ross will remember maybe briefly, it's Aston Villa, headed in by captain Loic Perrin. Bundled in, I think it's fair to say, and St Etienne claimed a share of the points. But if you look at what that does, I mean, Metz, had they have clung on to those 3 points, they could have been as high as 13th. They didn't, and they now sit 16th. So it's a really sort of difference of 3 places, quite a big thing at this stage of the season. And to be in front for so long and then concede in that situation, and suspicion of a foul maybe as well, they're going to feel absolutely gutted, because they deserved it as well. They were the better side for the long periods of time in that game, I thought. So yeah, they will be happy with the point, but they'll feel like they could have got all 3.
Yeah, this this is also the game that's worth looking out for, the highlight of Ruffier. I can't remember who it is who's lifting off.
Yes.
Is it Pierre Gabriel?
I believe it is.
His own player is injured and can't get off the pitch, but they're trying to get back and get the equaliser. So he picks him up and carries him off the pitch so they could speed up play to try and score the equalising goal, which I don't think I've ever seen in a game of football before.
Bizarre, and he's a big old unit, is Ruffier, but as is Gabriel, to be fair.
Yeah, Ruffier didn't look like he was lifting him with too much ease, to be honest. He looked like he was struggling a little bit.
It was a bit painter huffing paints and a ladder around, wasn't it?
Yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
Just a little. Another game, the other game we really want to sort of touch on is Lyon, who just were unbelievable against Roma in the way they came back midweek in the Europa League, and I'm really looking forward to the second leg of that. But yeah, absolutely destroyed Toulouse, and almost with I don't like to say it, but kind of a B team. And probably shout for goal of the season in this. Ross, I think you watched this one as well, did you?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And Lyon have been, sometimes this season, they've been a little bit iffy, but when they play to their best, even with their sort of second string outfit, they're just brilliant to watch, and they score goals for fun. Just talk us through it.
Oh, it was a fantastic watch. I was watching Liverpool at the same time, and it kind of occurred to me while I was watching them, that if there is a French equivalent of the way that Liverpool play, it's probably Lyon. But the difference is that when Lyon break on a team, Liverpool normally have 1, maybe 2 players left upfield. When Lyon do it, they have 3. And when they have players like Depay and Lacazette and Fekir, it was Cornet as well that was up top for them on the weekend. They're just so hard to handle and so hard to beat. They interchange really well. They're direct runners. They're all very good finishers. And the fourth goal from Memphis Depay, which I'm sure most people have seen now, especially if you're a Man United fan, because it will have done the rounds. But it's a pretty incredible curling effort from just inside the halfway line, and it was strange to watch it go in because it was almost like time slowed down, and we just kind of thought for a minute that he just hoofed it, and then you realise that he's actually whipped in an incredibly accurate shot from that distance. He's not had an easy start, Depay, but now he seems to be settling down, and he's not going to score those every week, but those kinds of goals lift your confidence, not just for the player that scores them, but for the team around you. And especially with that Roma win in midweek, you do kind of think that this could be a really major week in their season. With the Roma win, and now this one, and now with Roma again in midweek. So it was a fantastic game to watch, and if you haven't seen the goal, then it's well worth looking up.
Yeah, all the goals, to be fair, are cracking, but the Pies one is brilliant. Especially, funnily enough, we were talking about Xabi Alonso retiring from football. It is quite Alonso-esque, but great goal from Christophe Jallet as well. Absolutely rifles it in, and Cornet as well. His goal, really, really good. Just had way too much for Toulouse. We'll just go through some of the other results now. Caen got a very, very respectable draw away at Nice. Stumbling a little bit there. Mario, back in the team, did get himself a goal. They were actually 2-0 up, Caen, and ended up drawing 2-2, which I think they would have taken had you asked them beforehand. But Nice just stumbling a little bit and starting to fall away from Monaco and PSG. Marseille got themselves a 3-0 win. Thauvin with 2 goals again, Cabella as well. Monaco, after scoring goals for fun, only managed to score the 2 against Bordeaux, but another goal for your boy Chris, Mbappe, on the score sheet yet again.
Do you want some stats on him quickly?
Oh, go on then.
So Kylian Mbappe Lotta, this season in Liga, 30 games or appearances, 16 goals, 10 assists. He's 18. I'll let that just sink in for a minute.
Unbelievable. Yeah, just... I'm trying to imagine what price he's going to be come the summer because his number just keeps on going up. A very good goal from the kind of forgotten João Moutinho as well, who I'm still slightly confused as to whether he really meant that or it was a mishit cross. But if he did mean it, it's a very nice goal. Lille got a 2-1 win away against Nancy. A goal for Ronnie Lopez there, which sort of already spoke about Montpellier and Nantes. Rennes got a 1-1 draw with Dijon. Gangon absolutely hammered Bastia 5-0. And also yet another sending off for Bastia, Chris. They do like a red card, don't they?
They do. I think it's going to cost them their Liga status. I said on the GFFM pod I thought that Caen would drop away, and I still think Bastia and Lorient are the other two. Bastia in 2017, so not the season. This is just 2017. 10 matches, 9 red cards. That's 9. I mean, that is not good discipline, I think it's fair to say.
No, that's ridiculous. And even, I can't remember who it is, but there was a guy who's just only been brought in January. I noticed that he was on the list of red cards as well. So it's not like it's old members of the squad. It's anyone who turns up there seems to instantly see the red mist. So
mentality.
It's got to be close to a record at this point, hasn't it?
I think it might be, actually. Yeah, I'd have to look through some very boring stats books, but I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, the other thing as well, coming into this game, they had 3 players suspended. Sunroof, Jiku and Kalzak, of course, the infamous 4th official botherer. Yeah.
That's still my favourite one.
Yeah, isn't it just? And Gail Danich sent off for 2 bookables in this one. And it cost them the game as well, because they were, I say cost them the game, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. 60 minutes, they were already 2-0 down at that point. But yeah, it will cost them because they're going to run out of players at this rate. And they can't buy a win from anywhere. So other than a certain team in orange, which I guess we haven't mentioned yet, they aren't particularly doing very well at the moment.
Yeah, and the last game to mention is your Lorient, who had a tough opposition because they were hosting PSG. PSG on the back of that, obviously humiliating, devastating defeat against Barca. They did manage a win 2-1, so not the worst performance, I guess, from Lorient, but you know, it's not a game that they would have realistically targeted to get anything out of, is it? So
Don't think so, no.
I think PSG were just sort of going through the motions and trying to still forget about Lionel Messi and Sergio Roberto and anyone in a Barcelona shirt, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just they were just I mean, to be fair, PSG weren't that great, but they didn't have to be. Lorient got back in it with that goal from very good header actually from Siani, but yeah, PSG were a cut above. Just even in third gear, they were a cut above. And for PSG, it was all about just getting a victory after that humiliation in Barcelona. Did you see the Serge Aurier thing? Did you see this?
Oh yes, yeah, I did see this. Yeah.
I mean, this kid is a clown. I'm just going to say that straight. Seriously, I mean, all the talent in the world, and if there's any Premier League fans listening in, particularly Arsenal fans, where there was obviously talk that he was, an Arsenal fan as a kid and wanted to play for them and all this. If you ever wanted a reason as to why a manager like Arsene Wenger hasn't touched him, 8 minutes and 30 seconds it took him to get prepared to come on. And even better, if you've seen the video, it's 2 videos from this game that caught the headlines. The video of Unai Emery basically having a little word in his shell before he came on. You could clearly see that was look, you need to sort this out, because if you don't, I will just not play you ever again type of conversation. And also, I should mention, because Ross reminded me, Bernard Cassoni, the Lorient, in inverted commas, manager. I don't know if you saw this, John, but sorry for anyone with sensitive ears, but it's a direct quote. He was caught on camera mouthing the following: "Je mets de choses en place tout le temps pour une équipe de la merde," which basically translates in English, calling his team shit. So that didn't go down particularly well in certain sections of the Lorient press. Calling your own team poop is not good when you're caught on camera.
No, not good at all. We'll run through the table, and then Kris can give us a game to watch for next week. But as you say, Monaco are still top of the table, 68 points. PSG 3 points behind. Nice just dropping off a little bit, 2 points further back. Then it's a further 13 points. Lyon on 50. Marseille on 45. Bordeaux on 43. Saint-Etienne on 41. Guingamp and Rennes both on 38. Nantes on 37, Toulouse, Angers both on 36, then down to 13th, Montpellier and Lille both on 33, Caen, Metz on 32, Dijon and Nancy both on 28, Bastia on 25, and Lorient down at the bottom on 22. So still the league, plenty to play for, and certainly still a chase for the Europa League spot as well. So Kris, have you got us a game to watch next week?
Yes and no. I couldn't kind of make up my mind. So I'm a little bit torn on this one, because there's a couple. PSG Lyon is the obvious one, because that's just going to be all kinds of nuts. But Dijon St Etienne intrigues me, because that's on 4:00 on Sunday, and also Bordeaux Montpellier, just because it's a classic fixture, which is on the Saturday night. Okay. If you can bear to put yourself through another Lille game, Lille Marseille might also be tasty on Friday. So there's lots of games really, but I mean PSG Lyon is the obvious one, because I mean that's going to be absolutely crazy. I think that'll be a good game.
Absolutely.
I just read the word friend and said friend instead of game there. That's very clever, wasn't it?
Well, that's everything from Liga this week. Thank you very much for Ross for coming in and having a little chat about Liga. I'm sure we'll, if he's staying on the line, we'll maybe fire a couple of questions at him as well at the end. But I shall hand it back over to you, Kris.
No worries, thank you. Well, Ross can stick around, I'm sure, because we're going to sort of delve into the next section of the podcast, and maybe some of the questions we might be able to get his thoughts on as well. So before we get to questions, though, we've got 2 other segments to get through. First of all, we're going to take a little trip to another part of the world, in fact, this week, for the best of the rest. Okay, Josh, you've been sat there very quietly, so we're going to drag you back in at this stage, because you have recently started to get interested in a league in China, the CSL, of course, which is underway and rocking with all its millions and millions and millions and billions of pounds and terrible pitches. So, do you want to give our listeners just a little bit of your knowledge and a little bit of information as to what you've seen so far, what's impressed you, what's not, and where the table lies with some really hard to pronounce clubs?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I'd see what the fuss was about after the barrage of transfer stories that were coming out and trying to sift through the wheat and the chaff for which stories were the ones that really are true and are worth looking at. I've seen a couple of games now across the weekend. The league kicked off 2 weekends ago, and we're in just finished the second game week. The teams have also been playing in the Asia equivalent of the Champions League, which for the life of me I cannot remember at the moment. But I can quickly scoot through the results from the last game week. There's only 2 game weeks that have been played, so the table at the moment doesn't really give you all of the basically what's going on in the league. But just to quickly run through, on Friday night we saw AVB's Shandong SIPG roll out 2-0 winners against Yanban Fundi. We've also got Jiangsu Suning putting out we've got Ramirez and Alex Teixeira in their ranks, come out with a 0-0 draw against Jean-Obi Mikel's Tijan Teda. Finally, on the Friday, then finished off with Shandong Lueng, which I think Ross will be happy to know is the team that Graziano Pella is at the moment. He didn't manage to get on the score sheet in their 2-1 win over Scolari's Gangshu Evergrande. It's a lot of big Brazilian players there, as you'd expect from any team that is managed by Big Phil. Then on to Saturday, we've got Yelovic's Guangzhou Hengfing, which were the promoted team, or one of the 2 promoted teams from last season, getting a 1-1 draw with the Evergreen Yilmaz getting a goal for Beijing to get both teams get the points there. We've then got Alan Kardec scoring for Shanqing Dangdai. I'm going to go with that.
That works for me.
Please correct me if it's wrong. Hopefully I haven't said something offensive. And they've managed to get a draw against Pellegrini's Hebei China Fortune. Didn't realise, but a lesser spotted Hernandez of Serie A fame is currently anchoring their midfield. So I'll be interested to see how well he gets on there, because I think he did very, very well for Lazio in his time there. But Juventus, I think he was expecting a little bit more from him in his time. I think John may or may not agree on that point.
That would be fair to say. Just looking at the names of the teams here, Josh, I'm so pleased that you're doing this segment and not me.
Or Danny on that point as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are certainly some interesting ones. The standout game that I saw this weekend was Gustavo Poyet's Shanghai Shenhao. Played out a lively 1-1 draw with Tijan Qijan, maybe. We're going to go with that as
Sounds
well.
Good.
A player to look out for in the ranks of Shanghai, not their record signings, but Giovanni Moreno. He scored an absolute peach of a goal. From what I could work out on TV, he's probably just over 6 foot, 6'2", 30-year-old Colombian playmaker, classic number 10 with a rifle with a left foot. Managed to open the scoring then before Axel Witsel. Remember him on the flight down to Juventus?
What a waste.
Yeah.
He managed to score what could only be described as a very lucky goal at the back post to level the scoring. But I think they were very unlucky, Shanghai, to concede that goal. But they were down to 10 men after 24 minutes for a dodgy tackle. And after my evening of watching dodgy leagues across this this weekend, I've also watched the MLS. I think Cannavaro's team, Tijan Quino, didn't do themselves too badly, seeing as they got promoted as well last season with Cannavaro at the helm. And then finally on Sunday, I had 2 games here. Dragan Stojkovic, I think a touted Arsenal Wenger replacement for many, many years, because he was his assistant at where he was in Japan. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Grampus 8.
Grampus 8, yes.
Was it Grampus 8 he was at, or was that Gary Lineker? I always get
no, Grampus 8 he did manage, yeah. I think Gary Lineker was there as a player as well from memory.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so he's come in there managing Guangzhou RNF. Got a 1-0 win over Igalo, if you remember him from Watford. I think he had a very bright spell to his Premier League debut last season, but kind of stopped scoring. He hasn't started scoring yet in China for his team, Changchun Yatai. And the final game was between Henan Xiaye, came with a 1-1 draw against Liaoning Huin, or Huin maybe. It'll be a bit like Toulouse. I'm sure we can try and get a pun in there somewhere when they eventually get 3 points. So there's only 16 teams in the CSL, and they've played 2 games. I can quickly run through the table. So top, I suppose it's joint top, all on 6 points, is Shanghai SIPG. Then we've got Shandong Lueng, Guangzhou RNF, and Shanghai Suha are on 4 points. Those are all of the unbeaten teams. Then we drop into Guangzhou Evergrade, Liang Huin, Guangzhou Shechen, Habai CFFA. Then at 9th, Chongqing Dang. 10th, we've got Henan Shui. 11th, we have Beijing Guan. 12th, Zhejiang Kujan. 13th, we've got Taijian Tida. 14th, Shiyamban Funde. 15th, Yangshu Soning. And propping up the table is Changchun Yatai, who are on 0 points. And I'll try and take a breath after that, because there were too many syllables.
Yeah, absolutely. I think round of applause, metaphorically round of applause, because I know we did the Greek League a few weeks ago, and I struggled big time with that.
That was very funny.
it was not funny at all, Git. I think...
Fortunately, the player names are a little bit easier in this league.
Yes, yeah, well, luckily. I think along with the Get John a Deportivo Wanker shirt with Classic Football Shirts, I think we should say the next person who buys a shirt from Classic Football Shirts and tweets us to say they've got it has to then, or will have to then, read the Chinese football results on a live recording. I think we'll get Danny to do it on a live recording. So I think that has to happen. So there you go. It's very, very good, very good, Josh. Sorry, and we appreciate you doing that information, getting that information on it for us, because that's a league that a lot of people ask us about on a regular basis. So if you're a follower, if you're watching it, or indeed if you can pronounce the names brilliantly, get in touch. We might do a special with you. So let us know. Right. Okay. Go on.
Quickly
Josh,
before we move on, just a couple of shout outs from a couple of Twitter accounts that I'm getting the information from. We've got wildeastfootball.net. It's Cameron, at Cameron WEF is the editor of that. It's also Paul Williams, who's Paul Williams _85 on Twitter. And we've also got Modern Li Feng. I'll spell that one. At Modern and then LEIFENG. And I just want to shout out to those guys who have helped me point in the right direction to get the information on the CSL and to start following it more closely.
Superb. Yeah, we'll what we'll probably do is we'll get on to I think at some point we'll tweet them and say thank you very much, because it is a bit of a nightmare to find information, it seems, from other sources. So thank you very much to those kind individuals. Right. I also watched some MLS over the weekend, but we'll save that for another day. All I will say is that Minnesota United have got a long season ahead of them, and our commiserations to Jimmy and Anguna. DC United thumped by New York City FC this weekend, and the Chicago Fire, they won. Yes, they did. Woohoo! So there we go. Good times. We'll come back to MLS throughout the season. Right, we're going to move on now. And we're going to move across to our section now where we profile a player and have a little chat about them. So let's get over to this week's Hipster's Choice. Okay, so this one is definitely one for John, I think it's fair to say, because we're off to Serie A this week. I say it's for John. It's kind of one for me and for John, I suppose, because John knows I'm a bit of a fan of this player as well. So this week's Hipster's Choice takes us to Serie A, and it's a gentleman who plays for Lazio. And this man is called Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. So what do we know about Sergej Milinkovic-Savic? Well, he is Lazio's number 21 and he plays for Serbia's under-21s, ironically. He was born on the 22nd of February 1995, sickening, 22 years of age. He is 6'3.5". That's very precise, goodness me. 167 pounds. He's a right-footed player, midfielder. He's a client of Nike, wears their Mercurial Superfly 5 boots. He doesn't have Twitter as far as we know. He's on Instagram though, Sergej_long_21 by the looks of that. So you can stalk him on Instagram if you wish. So what do we know about him? Well, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, or Sergej as he's nicknamed, he was born in LaLiga in Spain, or Lleida, I'll go with Spain, to Serbian parents. Both of his parents were professional athletes. His father a footballer who played for Serbia, Spain, Portugal and Italy. That's quite a collection. And his mother a Yugoslav basketball player. I think it's safe to say that sport was in the family. Upon retirement, Sergej's father and the family moved to Serbia, and he joined the youth academy at FK Volvidia. We'll go with that. He signed a professional contract with the club and made his debut at 18 years of age. He made 16 appearances for the club during the spell between 13-14 season, scoring 4 goals and helping the team to the Serbian Cup win. His appearances caught the eye of the Belgian club Genk, and he was signed for €1 million on a 5-year contract in June 2014. He made 25 appearances for Genk in the 14-15 season with 5 goals netted. Never truly settled in Belgium though, and on July 31st, 2015 it was announced that he would join Lazio for €9 million at the start of the 15-16 season. Dubbed the Serbian Wonder Kid, Sergej made an immediate impact, making 19 appearances in his first 5 months for the Italian side. He made his debut for the club in the first leg of the Champions League playoff versus Bayer Leverkusen in August 2015. Scored his first goal in the Europa League draw with Dynamo Dnipro. I'm just going to go with Dnipro in September 2015, and scored his first Serie A goal in a 3-1 away win over Fiorentina in January of 2016. In the same season, he made 25 Serie A appearances, that's 22 starts, 4 goals, 4 assists, and 3 Coppa Italia performances, scoring 2 goals. He's enjoyed a successful international career and has been capped over 30 times for the Serbian under-19s, under-20s, under-21s, and was part of the team that beat Portugal in the final of the 2013 European Championships in Lithuania. He raised eyebrows in the 2015 Under-20 World Cup tournament. In that, basically, it's a very talented group of youth players. It's a tournament in which he made his senior debut. Meaning his senior debut is not far away. Given his height, he is physically imposing for a central, more attacking-minded midfielder. Most of the games he sits in front of the back four and is the definition of a box-to-box player. He's an excellent reader of the game, can hold the ball under pressure and makes late runs into the box. In the past, he's been somewhat reckless with his challenges, not in Serie A surely, but it seems to be improving. Despite his height, he's not particularly an aerial threat, and maybe perhaps he should be. Something to work on, I think it would be fair to say. So that's what we know about Milinkovic-Savic. John, this is your baby. You know what, you've seen plenty of him, I'm sure. So what's your views? What sort of player is he? What's your kind of opinions on the player that he is at Lazio at the moment?
I absolutely love him. I really enjoy watching him play. He's, for fans of the Premier League, sort of the easiest comparison in physicality, at least, is probably someone like Ross Barkley. He's quite similar in that physical build, very strong, very big for the age he is, and it's strange to see someone that size playing He's not a number 10, but as an attacking midfielder, so central anyway. He can bully people, he can win the ball, his distribution is very good, he's got great vision, and some of the goals he can score, he's got a really, really mean shot on him as well. It is true to say he does lack the aerial threat, which is strange when you consider how big he is. And he does make those sort of Lampard, Barkley, Ramsey-esque sort of late runs into the box, if you like. So that is something he's certainly working on, and you've seen him a lot more this season try and get his head on the end of things. But I really do think the sky's the limit with him, and there's always been a lot of interest around him. That Serbian team in particular, the under-21 team in 2014 tournament, had some really, really talented players, but he was certainly the star of the team. And I feel kind of sorry for Lazio, because obviously we mentioned Keita earlier, who is a player who could possibly be going, with Barcelona being very interested in him. Milinkovic-Savic is another one who I suspect if the big boys really want him, they will splash the cash, because he's definitely worth it. I think he's the kind of player who, even at that age, despite coming from a league where players don't tend to cost as much, you could see like a £30 million fee, certainly if he goes to a Premier League club. And I think he can make a real impact. He's probably not as far along in his development as, say, someone like Kevin De Bruyne, who's of a similar age and kind of similar role. He hasn't got quite the same kind of pace on the game, but obviously he's more defensive minded, so he's slightly more adaptable in the midfield. But I think he's superb. I'd certainly love to have him at Inter or Arsenal or any of the clubs I follow. He's really good, and I think he's easily good enough to end up at a very big club in the years to come.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's been linked with Arsenal, hasn't he? Depending on what manager they might have.
Yeah,
future,
I think Arsenal's one, Chelsea's one, City as well. So there's quite a few Premier League teams. I know Barcelona have showed interest in the past, Real Madrid as well. So all the big boys have looked at him. Bayern have been linked, Juve. So I'm sure he won't be short of suitors. It's just whether he goes this summer or not. As I say, obviously Lazio could end up losing quite a few players, so depending on how much money they get for certain people, it might mean they can keep hold of one or two just by offering them slightly improved contracts, I guess, and then saying, we'll put a buyout clause in, or if someone comes in with this kind of offer for you a year down the line, then we'll let you go. So which one will be the first out the door, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it will be one to watch, because as I say, I think he's a very, very good little player and has come on a lot this season, showing promise early on, and he's catapulted forwards this season. So
it's just nice to see a midfielder who's a real bully but got talent as well. Very sort of a throwback in that sense.
Well, I like Juraj Kucka, but his talent is maybe kicking people rather than doing stuff.
Technical skill, yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. So yes, okay. Right, well, that's Milinkovic-Savic. You know the drill, listeners. If there's somebody you really, really want us to profile, please let us know. Next week, we're going back to MLS to have a chat about another player playing his trade in America. So stay tuned to our Twitter feed and to the podcast next week for more on that. Right, okay. We will move on then to our final section of the podcast. It's Your Questions Answered. It's this week's Onion Bag. Right then, a couple of questions that I reckon all of us can have a little. There's some that are specifically geared to some people and some that can be answered by anyone. So we'll start with this one for John. Francisco Zandino. He's got to be a Serie A follower with that name, hasn't he? I think he's a Milan fan, looking at his bio. Yes, he is. He wants to ask a question about Milan, John. So he says, should Milan wait on the Chinese investors or look at a different option?
There's been more news again, because we were told that this was all going to go through, was it last week or the week before? That's all failed. Now we're being told that if the €100 million, which is kind of like a fine for not going through with the deal and getting it all finalised, which apparently they've already received one payment for, there's no actual clarification or any record of these payments being made, at least to public knowledge, but it's been said that they have. If this 100 million is paid, then the deal will be pushed to go through at the end of April. I suspect that even if they do get this 100 million, whether whether that's true or not, I've got no idea. But even if they did get that, I still think there'll be delays. The fact it's taking this long, I think Milan should, to be perfectly honest, look for investment elsewhere. The apparent hold-up is the Chinese government releasing a certain amount of money to these investors to spend. They've got the money, but it's up to the Chinese government to release it. And I think with what we've seen in Chinese football, with the money that they're spending and how the government's trying to cut back on that, and investment in other clubs around sort of Europe, especially obviously Suning Group at Inter, there's talk in LaLiga of Chinese takeovers and in the Premier League, then it's going to be harder and harder for these people to get the money out of China to invest in clubs. So I think for Milan, it's probably best to go and get another investor. For Berlusconi, it's probably best to milk them for as much as possible and then make himself look like a hero of Milan again. But to be fair, he has been a president who's resided over them, winning many, many trophies, so I'm not going to knock him too much.
Yeah, it's one of those that the longer it runs, the longer you think, is it actually going to happen, isn't it? So, yeah, it's a tricky one, but good question. That's he also wanted to ask me one, same person. If Lyon lose most of their star players, will they look to buy domestically or look at other leagues or promote youth players? The fabled Lyon Academy, I think, is probably where a lot of them are going to come from. I think they've got a few that are waiting in the wings that sort of you can pull out. There's quite a lot of young names, but there's probably one that I reckon you can keep an eye on. Shall I let it slip? Shall I not let it slip? Yeah, I'll let it slip. Okay, so I've got to find his name now, so I don't want to butcher this. There's a young lad in the academy who goes by the name of... See, I can't find it now. Where's it gone? Goodness me. Sorry, you'll have to bear with me. While I find the gentleman's name, yes, it would have to be said... Oh, I found it now, so you knew that would bloody happen, didn't you? He is a 15-year-old striker, tipped to follow in the lines of Karim Benzema, so no pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. William Goebbels. I'm going to pronounce it Goebbels because if you look at it quickly, it looks like Goebbels, and I really hope it's not him because that would be a bit awkward. But William Goebbels, so yeah, 15 years old as a striker. So you'll start to see some of these younger players drifting through the academy, I think, at Lyon. But their president, Jean-Michel Aulas, the famous, he certainly made no secret of the fact that Lacazette will almost certainly be sold this year or this summer. We all know about Tolisso, John, off to Juventus by the sounds of it. Yeah, I think there will be shipping. I think there's a few more. Rashid Ghazala's attracted Everton and Southampton's attention. I think there's another one. Maxwell Cornet, I think, is tempted to move on as well. So we shall see. But yeah, they've got a good academy. I think they'll be absolutely fine. As for externally, yeah, they'll pluck a few from obscure leagues, I'm sure. They got Mamana out of Argentina, for example. But I think most of it will come through the academy because it's cheaper and they can sell higher. So that's probably what I think will happen there. We'll come back to PG Nezes because that's for me as well. Here's one that I think Ross could have a little go on because it's kind of Arsenal based, but it could be stretched out. So Garden State Gooners, Ross, what goalkeeper should Arsenal, or I'll broaden it out, any Premier League club, use or get to replace the washed up Peter Cech, he says. So I'll expand that question to beyond Arsenal. Any young goalkeepers in your knowledge field, so I think we're going Championship here, that could maybe make a step up like Jack Butler maybe has, for example?
The Championship's a bit tougher. I can't think of one standout goalkeeper off the top of my head. I mean, Carl Darlow is doing well at Newcastle, but I think Carl Darlow, for me, is a bit of a Welsh-Charter Boruc in that he will have incredible games and then he'll drop a clanger which will play on his mind and he'll just, he'll lose it for the entire game. So I'm even looking at some of the biggest teams in the division. I don't look at Brighton and think they've got a great goalkeeper. So no, I can't see many in the Championship. The names that sprang to mind when I did read that question earlier were, if you want an established goalkeeper that I'm a big fan of, Anthony Lopez at Lyon, I think is a very good athletic goalkeeper. And a goalkeeper that I'm sure John will know more than I do, but Mattia Perrin, I know he's injured at the moment, but I think he's a very good goalkeeper. So I think he's one for the future if you're looking long term. But Championship's a bit tougher. There's standout attackers in the division this season, but I can't think of too many goalkeepers.
Good question. Good question. If we come up with any more, trying to think of that. I mean, Ruffier's been brilliant in France this season, but he's not always convinced everyone. Alban Lafont or Jan Oblak are the two that immediately jump to mind.
Just
Oblak
go and give Milan 50 million for Donnarumma.
For Donnarumma, yeah. Well, if this takeover doesn't happen at Milan, there's talk that he could stay there till his contract ends, and then because his agent's Mino Raiola, isn't it? So
yeah, he'll be at Juventus then.
yeah, new Buffon and all that jazz. But yeah, Perrin's a great shout, and I'm a big fan of Lafont at Toulouse. I think that they're keen to keep an eye on those two. Right, okay. Another question. You wanted to go on this one, Josh, didn't you? From our good friend Tom at 5-Star Flips. Thoughts on the difference in price between season tickets in England compared to the leagues you cover? So obviously we don't go to many games abroad between us. We might have a few caps between us, but I certainly have in Italy and France a few times. But what do you reckon to that, Josh? What do you reckon about the season ticket prices?
I think on some of them, I think we need to look at the bigger picture of how the teams get the income. I know prices in the whole of English football, this shouldn't just be looked at the Premier League, but the whole of English football is completely inflated. When you come to look at the likes of Man City season ticket prices and compare them to someone like Brighton's, they're more or less the same. And you're looking at two drastically different teams. I think it comes down to the fact that when you look at other leagues, I'm going to particularly go towards Italy, especially with the away support for most of the middle of the road teams. It's very difficult to actually fill stadiums. There isn't a huge amount of demand for tickets compared to England, where almost every game, especially in the top divisions, is almost sold out. And I think that's the problem, that the demand is there, which is driving up the ticket prices. But I don't know what everyone else feels about that. I think when we have a look, I think the touted one about Arsenal having the highest season ticket price in England, I think we've all, or at least all the Arsenal followers of this pod, have argued that also includes not just your standards 18, 19 home games, but also 7 cup credits, which for a team like Arsenal, who are routinely, fingers crossed, getting into the Champions League each season, and FA Cup and EFL Cup, you do have an opportunity to bank those 7 credits. So in theory, you're actually getting a lot more for your money than the headline figure actually gives away. But as I said, that it is expensive, but I think it's because of such a high demand for people to want to go and see their team.
Yeah, agreed. I want to actually, Ross, what's the Southampton season ticket, and what's the typical prices Championship wise? Is it, as you'd expect, higher at the bigger clubs, Newcastle's, Villas, that kind of club?
I'd have to check our season ticket price. I remember when we were League One, I used to be able to get in to see us play for about a tenner, which was incredible. I ball boyed, so I didn't have to pay it, but you know what I mean. It was dirt cheap to go and see us play League One. Season after, I think our Championship tickets were about 20-25 quid. And I imagine Championship tickets are in and around that now. I would expect Newcastle, for example, would want upwards of 30-40 kind of pound. But I think for a team that's stuck in the Championship, I think you're probably looking at 20-30 quid. Our season ticket prices, I don't remember offhand. I'm going to have a dig around now, but I can't imagine they're much more than £500, which even for me is far too steep, because I'm still an ex-student. I'm still recovering from all that debt. But you know what I mean? It's the Championship especially. I think you get a more reasonable price because every week you can fill the stadium with another 24,000 Championship fans for whoever's club they're going to go and see. Whereas the Premier League, I think the 32,000 you get at Southampton, for example, are the same 32,000 you'll get the week after. So I do understand the outrage of ticket prices, I really do, but sometimes it depends on who the club is, where they're going, how likely they are to be in cup competitions, etc. So although I do completely agree with especially the German outlook, which is that we are vastly overpaying for certain teams. I know Arsenal fans are the ones that get pointed out the most, but yeah, there are certain clubs that certainly overvalue the worth of their team.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. Ross has just put in the chat box as well. 545 quid for Brighton for a season, 45 quid to see Newcastle and Villa. So, yeah, it's not cheap in the Championship either, is it?
Josh, not Ross.
Sorry, I've done a Danny.
That's all right. But yes, and that was one of the middle of the range tickets. That's not corporate hospitality. That's a normal, by the dugout kind of ticket. So that gives you the idea that there are more expensive tickets in there that aren't hospitality for that particular game.
It's. I suppose it's again. It comes down to, like you say, supply and demand, doesn't it? If people are willing to pay it, they'll keep charging it. I know Bundesliga is the model that everyone wishes they could have, but yeah, football is an expensive old game. Even buying shirts these days, unless of course you visit our partners where you get them a lot cheaper. But yeah, it is a very, very expensive game. Following supporting football clubs. Good question, that, Tom. Thank you. He also wanted to ask John a quickie about Felipe Anderson, John. Could he be a top player in the future? Potential replacement for Sanchez if he leaves Arsenal?
Oh, well, that's a step up. Yeah, I mean, he's really stepped forward this season for Lazio since Candreva has moved on to Inter, and he's kind of taken the mantle of the star creator, if you like, in the team. There was a link, or was it last season, with Manchester United, and there was the rumour of a £50 million deal, and it was all done and everything. That didn't materialise in the end. But whereas last year he struggled with consistency and you'd only see these flashes, this year he has really, really kicked on. He's got unbelievable pace. And some of the passes he can pull off is fantastic, and his finishing has got even better. But the real thing has been his consistency, and he's doing it week in, week out. And again, he's just another name from that Lazio team that could end up leaving. I don't think he's not a direct replacement, quite the same as Sanchez, because he wouldn't really be able to play that forward role, striker role, I don't think. Maybe in a few years' time he might develop into that kind of player, but I don't think he's really that right now. He kind of reminds me of when you saw Nani come to Manchester United, and it was this, oh wow, look at this really technical sort of player who's got explosive pace and can do a trick but also score ridiculous goals and get assists. And I know Nani is sort of not remembered favourably in some circles, but there's no doubting his ability, and Anderson's kind of similar in that sense. He's not as big physically, but I really do think he's got the talent to really push on. Again, another one who's been at times linked with Barcelona, so I'm sure at some point he will be moving on from Lazio.
Yeah, Nani was exactly the player I thought of when you said about it. Actually, he's very, very similar, and his movement style is very similar to Angel Di Maria, but a different type of player.
Yeah. The sort of the way he cushions the ball as he runs and dribbles with it is quite similar. But yeah, he's the kind of player who, were it not for the fact that the Brazilian team has got so many ridiculous players in it, you would be seeing him at international level as well. But it's kind of a bit like Argentina. How do you pick a forward in that team with the list of players that you can have playing as a striker or a number 10? Or just unbelievable.
Yeah, pick a player, any player kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, one more from me, and I think Ross has got one for you, John, and then we'll wrap up with a statement from someone, or a kind of a statement, I think. I'll read that one out as well. PG Nez, our good French pal, he wanted to ask me, what can Unai Emery do, if anything, to save his job in the long term at PSG, of course? Well, PG, I think we're probably both in agreement. I don't think Unai Emery will be in a job at the end of the season. I know, obviously, he recovered from the week to beat Lorient. Quite frankly, us four on this pod could probably beat Lorient at the moment. I think PSG have to, quote marks, win Liga this season to have any chance. I think they have to win one of the domestic cups. I think they probably will win that, to be fair. I still think Monaco are favourites for Liga, and I hope they win Liga. We've discussed them many times on this pod. It would be justice if they did. I just don't think he can recover from such a hammer blow. He was brought in for this project. He was brought in to do this very job. And the biggest issue I think he's going to face this summer I think, John, you probably agree with this. Look at the managers that are probably going to be available this summer. Potentially Arsene Wenger. Massimo Allegri could be available. Diego Simeone could be available.
Luis Enrique already is available.
Exactly, yeah. And Luis Enrique actually is a very underrated choice because I think he'd be a bit of a hipsters. They've gone for Unai Emery already. What better to bring in another Spanish coach?
Spalletti is possibly going to be available. If someone comes in at Inter, Pioli is available. There's going to be a lot of names. Yeah.
Alan Pardew is obviously a big name. So.
Oh no, I think he's got the Norwich job, hasn't he?
Ruled out. Well, there's always Roy Hodgson if worse comes to worse. But jokes aside, PG, I just maybe they'll stick with him. But the comments coming out, I mean, they were very defensive after the Barcelona game, and in the coming days they've been a bit more, well, we might sack him, we'll see. I think if the right coach is available with the right profile, he'll be gone. So they didn't stick with Laurent Blanc, and look what he won. So yeah, I don't think they'll recover from that somehow. And as Josh puts out, Pochettino as well, former PSG player, that could have a little bit of skin to it if the money's right, you never know. Anyway, we'll finish with a question from Ross for John, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question, John, about a player that I really like in Serie A. Assuming you've heard of him anyway. Lorenzo Kreistig, if that's how you pronounce his name. Formerly of Inter, has gone on loan to Parma and Spezia and Cagliari and Bologna and all kinds of places. Is he any good? Because I've been told for years that he was one to watch, and he's gone to Inter Milan, I think, twice now, and been shipped out on loan and doesn't seem to have settled anywhere.
It's it's one of those weird things in Italy that sometimes, well, I suppose it's not just Italy, it does happen with a lot of players, but particularly in Italy, sometimes it takes a player a long time to either find the right club or the right manager to get the best out of them. The best example I can think of is, who people would probably know better, is Lapadula, who's at Milan now, who had a very, very good season last year in Serie B, was top goal scorer, but he kind of bounced around clubs and was not touted as going to be a worldie or anything, but was always thought highly of at a young age, and it never quite worked out. And it wasn't until, I think he's 27, Lapadula, something like that, and it was a bit of a surprise for Milan to sign him. But sometimes players it just takes until they're a bit older to kind of come through. So it may just be a case of that, but I think going to Inter any period from sort of up to now and the last probably 5 years, it's not really the best club to go through because it has been in such a mess in terms of who's been managing it, who's on the board, what the general direction of the club is, the style of play, that kind of thing. It's kind of changed, not just from season to season, but within the seasons as well. So it's not really the best environment to develop talent, and it's basically the reason why you haven't really seen any youth come through at Inter. Whereas you look at places like Milan and Sassuolo and Pescara and clubs like that, they've had a kind of identity and players have really developed there. But Inter, it just hasn't worked at all.
Interesting. Yeah, he's a player I liked. I must admit, I thought he'd be decent. He never really kicked on, did he? But no, he's another one that's probably worth keeping an eye on just to see what ends up happening with his career. Final statement. This kind of this is a statement. We got a tweet from Kieran Fitzgerald, who I think is a new addition to the podcast listenership, or he's only recently joined us. He said probably not someone from Hipsters' Choice, but any mention for Kazuyushi Mira. Still scoring at 50 years old. He says hashtag FIFA 98. Bobby Chakraborty, our friend, responded, said the guy in Japan, I think they mentioned him at the start of the season. I don't remember whether we did or not. How bad is that? But Kieran responds with, I may have missed that one. Bit of a latecomer. October did break his own record as oldest scorer at the weekend. 50 years of age. That's nuts.
It's mental. I'm just looking at a picture of him here. He looks much fitter than me as well. And he's 50.
I don't think that's hard for all of us, to be fair, John. I feel you on that one. Super stuff. Right. We will wrap up the podcast there. And many thanks for joining us all for our listenership. We do appreciate you all. As usual, you can follow us on Twitter at the FH Podcast. You can follow us via iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, our website. All sorts of lovely, good stuff going on. As mentioned in the last podcast last weekend, Jake Bayliss is going to be writing us some blogs. He hasn't got in touch since I mentioned him last week, so I really apologise, Jake. Please don't run away. Yes, Jake will be putting up a blog soon. This is discussing his sort of hipsters game of the weekend. So keep a lookout for that. Myself and Ross. And indeed, Josh, we're going to be doing a podcast soon about the EFL, so stay tuned for news on that during the international break. That one is. And of course, our sponsors/partners, classicfootballshirts.co.uk. Get yourselves across there, use the promo code CFSAW10, and you can get yourself 10% off. So let us know if you make a purchase, because you know what we're doing to John. Until next week, many thanks to Josh and to Ross for stepping into the breach once more. Thank you both very much.
Pleasure.
No problem.
And many thanks to John, of course, for pressing the buttons and being my regular cohort as well.
No worries.
And of course, thank you to myself. No, I'm joking. Thank you to our crew, Kat, Var, Kelly, and Gaz, all behind the scenes. And no thanks to Danny, because he can barely get out of bed each day. So we'll wrap it up with that. Nice little shout out for Danny. We'll be back with English Breakfast on Sunday after another packed weekend of Premier League action and, of course, the EFL as well. But until then, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. Enjoy your football, and we'll speak to you very soon.